Good morning. Today's class is on malaria. What is malaria? It is a protozoan infection which is caused by the Plasmodium species, wherein there is infection of the red blood cells which are transmitted by bite of blood-feeding female Anopheles mosquito. To say a few words on the historical events of malarial parasite, in 1880, Leverin, who was a French army surgeon, discovered the causative agent of malaria in the RBCs. 1881, Romanowski was the one who identified the staining methods in the blood films. The speciation of the malarial, the Plasmodium genera were done in 86 to 90. 97, it was Ronald Ross who was a Scottish physician who discovered the mode of transmission. The various species of Plasmodium, it is Plasmodium falciparum, vivax, malariae, oval, and then we have a new one which is Nolosi. The life cycle of malarial parasites: the definitive host is the female Anopheles mosquito, intermediate host is the man, the infective form to the man is the sporozoites, and infective form to the mosquitoes is the gametocytes, and mode of transmission is the inoculating mode, that is the bite of the female Anopheles mosquito. The life cycle of the malarial parasites takes place in two stages. One is the asexual phase, which occurs in the humans, who is the intermediate host, and a sexual phase which occurs in the mosquito, who is the definitive host. There are various morphological forms during the life cycle. In the mosquito you have the sporozoite, ookinete, and oocyst. In the humans you have the sporozoites which get converted into the merozoites, and then the trophozoites which are in the RBCs, which can be early trophozoites or the late trophozoites, schizons, and the gametocytes. Now coming to the life cycle proper, the asexual cycle, that is which occurs in the man. You have two stages here. You have pre-erythrocytic cycle and another one erythrocytic cycle. The pre-erythrocytic cycle occurs within the liver, erythrocytic within the RBCs. Now these sporozoites of all the species, if you see, will enter into the blood circulation. Before they enter into the hepatocytes, the spindle-shaped sporozoites, they enter into the hepatocyte, within which they become rounded, and they undergo multiplication, wherein they form the pre-erythrocytic schizogony occurs. These multiply inside the RBCs, which are called as the merozoites, and these merozoites, when whole of the RBC gets filled, it ruptures and releases the merozoites. Some of the merozoites, especially in species like vivax and oval, they infect the fresh hepatocytes, and they are called as hypnozoites. They remain dormant within the hepatocytes and they are called as hypnozoites. But majority of them are they infect the RBCs. Within the RBCs, they undergo various stages of development, that is from the ring form, ring and the amoeboid forms, which are the early trophozoid forms, and the late trophozoids form, schizons, and some of them mature into gametocytes. Some of them infect the fresh RBCs, uninfected RBCs. Okay, and the cycle continues. Now, a few of these schizons which rupture out of the RBCs are converted or develop into the male and the female gametocytes. These gametocytes are then taken up by the Anopheline mosquito during the bite. Right? So, if you see the pre-erythrocytic, the phase, as I said, occurs in the liver. Erythrocytic occurs in the RBCs. So, just to summarize on the cycle, these sporozoites, about 10 to 15 of them, will be introduced into the capillaries following the bite from the female Anopheline mosquito. They enter into the bloodstream. Majority of them get destroyed by the phagocytes, and few of them reach the hepatocytes. So within the hepatocytes, the spindle-shaped sporozoites then become rounded and they increase in size. They undergo nuclear division and they form merozoites. The enlarged hepatocytes, they are filled with these merozoites. They rupture, release the merozoites into the circulation. And as I said earlier, some of these merozoites re-enter the hepatocytes in the liver, especially in case of Vivax and ovale, and they act as hypnozoites, which are responsible for relapse of infections. Coming to the erythrocytic cycle, that is, once these merozoites from the ruptured hepatocytes, they attack the RBCs. These merozoites, they have an apical complex with which they get attached to the glycoprotein receptors which are present on the surface of the RBCs. Then they enter into the RBCs and they develop into what is called as ring forms. They appear as rounded bodies within the cytoplasm, with the cytoplasm being pushed to the periphery and the nucleus to one pole. As you can see, they appear as a signet ring appearance. The parasites, which then once they enter into the erythrocytes, they feed on the hemoglobin of the RBCs, and the ring forms will develop and increase in size, developing into a late trophozoite stage, which is called as the amoeboid stage. These then undergo mitotic division and they develop into schizons, usually which may contain about 8 to 32 merozoites within the RBCs. These schizons increase in size, the RBCs rupture, the merozoites are released back into the circulation, wherein most of them invade the uninfected RBCs and few of them get converted into the gametocytes, the male and the female gametocyte. And these male and the female gametocytes are then taken up by the female Anopheline mosquitoes, which ingest the infected RBCs following a blood meal. These asexual forms are digested except the gametocytes inside the stomach or the midgut of the mosquitoes. The male gametocytes undergoes a nuclear division forming 8 microgametes with a long whip-like filaments, and these macrogametes then fertilize the female gametocyte to form a zygote. This zygote undergoes a division, forms into a ookinete, which then gets converted into the oocyst, which occurs within the cells of the gut wall of the stomach of the mosquitoes. The oocysts then get converted into spindle-shaped sporozoites within an hematocele, which then gets accumulated in the salivary gland, and this becomes the infective stage to man. When the mosquito bites the man, the cycle again, the sporozoites gets released and the cycle again gets repeated. So the virulence of these malarial parasite, whenever there is a high parasitemia, all ages of RBCs will get infected. Plasmodium falciparum, if you see, both old and the young RBCs are infected, and 25% of the RBCs are fatal. The sequestration also occurs. They block the capillaries, especially in case of Plasmodium falciparum, because the cytoadherence of these parasites are much more when compared to the other species. And then you also have the release of the inflammatory cytokines like IL-1, TNF and IFN gamma. Pathogenesis depends on the immune response to the parasitic antigen. Then they may also have hypoxia, that is because of the obstruction which is caused by the parasites RBCs, as we call as sequestration, and they develop anemia, which is mostly due to the destruction of the RBCs. Certain people are resistant to malaria, especially when it comes to sickle cell anemia. People who are suffering from sickle cell anemia for Plasmodium falciparum. Okay, so you have sickle cell anemia, natural resistant to falciparum malaria. Thalassemia, they have usually protection against oval vivax and malariae. Those who have fetal hemoglobin, they are resistant to all species of Plasmodium. And those who have HBE, these people, blood group HBE, then these people are resistant against Plasmodium vivax. Whenever there is deficiency of G6PD, they are resistant against falciparum malaria. Duffy coat, negative persons, these are resistant to malarial infections. Symptoms, you have acute symptoms, wherein you have the typical manifestation of the malarial infections are you have a cold stage, hot stage and a sweating stage. The first 15 minutes to 1 hour you have intense cold, chills and shaking will occur, followed by a hot stage which lasts for about 2 to 6 hours, where you have high grade fever, headache, vomiting, seizures may occur in children because of the high grade fever. And the last stage is a sweating stage. Whenever the temperature falls, there is excessive sweating. So you have something called as a feel good or feel well for a period of time, and the cycle again repeats with cold, hot and sweating stage. So the fever, each species has a distinct course. So if you see tertian malaria, where the fever occurs every 3rd day, this usually occurs with falciparum, ovale and vivax. Or you may have a quartan malaria, which occurs once in 4 days, and this usually occurs in Plasmodium malariae. The course of the disease also, if you see the ovale and vivax, as I said, because in the life cycle, if you see, there are hypnozoids wherein the merozoites go sit within the hepatocytes and may remain dormant for some time. So therefore they can have relapses and they can cause what we call as chronic malaria, reappearing after months or years, which may be due to the latent parasites which are present within the liver. Falciparum malariae, this is malignant tertian malaria. Of the 4 species or 5 species of the Plasmodium, the most dangerous is your Plasmodium falciparum, because the number of complications are more by these species. So it manifests as malignant tertian malaria, black water fever, pernicious malaria, that is you have acute falciparum malaria with complications like cerebral malaria, algid malaria and septicemic malaria. So if you see the cerebral malaria, These cerebral malaria patients usually are due to plugging of the brain capillaries by parasitized RBCs. So what happens whenever there is plugging of the parasitized RBCs, the vascular occlusion occurs and there is cerebral anoxia or hypoxia. So the clinical manifestations for this cerebral malaria is encephalopathy, which is characterized by convulsions. There is decreased muscle tone. They may have retinal hemorrhages, neurological sequelae, high mortality rate, and patient may land up in coma. Algid malaria, this is characterized by cold, clammy skin. They may have hypotension, peripheral circulatory failure, and can go in for shock. Black water fever usually occurs when in patients who are previously treated, especially with quinine. This is characterized by intravascular hemolysis, fever, hemoglobinuria, and dark urine due to the presence of free hemoglobin. The cause for these black water may be due to autoimmune mechanism wherein the antibodies are developed against parasitized RBCs. Subsequent infection with quinine treatment, immune complex formation occurs and leads to complement mediated destruction of the parasitized and uninfected RBCs. So to name the other complications of the Plasmodium falciparum, they can go in for renal failure, pulmonary edema, they may have normocytic, normochromic anemia. So this is just to repeat the black water fever. They may have high fever, vomiting, jaundice, hemoglobinemia, circulatory collapse, and renal failure. Then you can also see something called as tropical splenomegaly syndrome, or otherwise called as hyperreactive malarial splenomegaly. This is an abnormal immunological response to malarial parasite where there is enormous splenomegaly and there is raised titers of anti-malarial antibodies. But the parasite, the malarial parasite is absent in the blood smears. There is increase in IgM and decrease in complement 3. The recurrence of malaria, you can have either true relapses or recrudescence. Recrudescence is a clinical manifestation of malaria which is commonly seen after a period of latency, that is more than 8 weeks. Period less than 8 weeks. In usually recrudescence is seen in falciparum and in malaria infections. And most common cause is the drug resistance or immunocompromised patients or pregnant women. Whereas the true relapses are usually seen with Vivax and Ovale. This is mostly due to the reactivation of the hypnozoites which are present in the hepatocytes after a long period of time. Now coming to the lab diagnosis. You can have the different modalities of diagnosis. One is a microscopy, antigen detection, antibody detection, culture of the malarial parasites, and molecular techniques. When it comes to the microscopy, you can have peripheral smear examination, as you can see in the slide, thick and thin smear. You can have another method, that is your fluorescent microscopy, and third one is the quantitative Buffy coat method. So the thin and the thick smear can be prepared after the finger prick, and as you do for your differential count, the thin smear can also be done. Why we are doing this thick smear and thin smear? Thick smear helps us in identifying whether the infective stages of the parasite is seen within the RBC or not, whereas your thin smear is used for speciating the parasite, because in the thick smear you will only know if the RBCs are infected or not. But what is the species which is infecting the RBCs is clearly made out when you do the thin smear. So if you see the changes, the microscopic changes in case of falciparum, the RBCs are usually normal in size, the rings are well defined and delicate with 1 or 2 chromatin dots. Another specific feature of falciparum is you have multiple rings which can be seen in a single RBC, wherein you can see in the first row, the 4th RBC, you can see about 3 rings present within it. And you also have something called as the presence of applic forms. Applic forms, if you see the second RBC in the first row, you will see a cytoplasm at the rim of the RBC wall and a dot of nucleus sitting over there. So this is called as the applic forms, which are very, very typical with falciparum malaria. And the gametocytes which are seen in falciparum malaria are sickle shaped or crescent shaped, and they have the dots which are called as Maurer's dots within the RBC. Vivax, the difference is the RBCs are enlarged. Usually it is the young RBCs which get infected. So the RBCs are enlarged. You see the dots which are called as Schaffner's dots. The ring, it is a single ring, and usually a signet ring shaped forms are seen. You will see the trophozoids, large irregular amoeboid forms with prominent vacuole, and schizons which are large and filling the RBCs. The gametocytes are all spherical with a blue cytoplasm and a compact nucleus. The grading of the parasitemia, and another difference between these falciparum and the vivaxes, both young and the old RBCs are infected in case of falciparum malaria, but whereas usually in the vivax it is only the young RBCs. The grading of parasitemia, for 100 thick smears you can grade them. If it is 1 to 10 parasites in 100 fields, then it is 1+, 11 to 100 it is 2+. If you have more than 1 to 10 parasites per field, then it is 3+, and if you have more than 10 per field, it is +4+. So the next microscopic method is the quantitative Buffy coat, which is usually this is based on the ability of the acridine orange to stain the nucleic acid containing parasites. The method here is the blood is collected in a capillary tube. This capillary tube is already coated with an acridine orange dye, fluorescent dye. Then you have to microhemocrit centrifugation of this tube is done, and you will get a Buffy coat formed within the tube, which is then examined under the fluorescent microscope, wherein you can see the malarial parasite, if present, as bright green colored structures. This method can detect as low as 3 to 4 parasites per microliter of blood, and this is slightly better than your peripheral smear examination. Disadvantages: you cannot identify the species, expensive, and requires a fluorescent microscope. The other method is the fluorescent microscopy, where you do the smear. The smears are then stained with the acridine orange, and you can see it under the fluorescent microscope. The DNA and RNA of the parasites are stained as fluorescent green and red color. Mass screening, the advantage of this is mass screening in the field studies can be done, because most often the fluorescent microscope, when used, we are examining under the low power microscope, which covers a wider area. Whereas if you do the conventional method, usually you are using the oil immersion field, so therefore you will be covering a smaller area at one time. So for mass screening, fluorescent microscopy becomes easier. The serological tests which are performed, which are much more rapid in nature, are the immunochromatography test or the rapid detection test, which help in detection of the antigens. That is, the common antigens which are used in these tests is the HRP2, that is histidine rich protein 2, which is secreted by the Falciparum malariae, and the lactate dehydrogenase, which is secreted by all the 4 species of Plasmodium. As you can see, the rapid card which is there in the slide, it will have a control band, and it has 2 more bands. One band is for pan malariae, the other band is for Falciparum malariae. So if it is a negative, there is another test which is more commonly used, one is called as the Optimol test. The same principle which runs on the immunochromatographic assay. If you have a single band at the control, that means it is negative. If you have in the pan band and the control band, it is Vivax. If you have the appearance of the band at the Falciparum, pan malariae and the control, it is usually Falciparum malariae. Because Falciparum malariae not only gives you the HRP2, but it also releases the lactate dehydrogenase. The advantage of these rapid detection tests is within half an hour the report can be given, usually 10 to 15 minutes the report is given, and accurate, simple to use, low cost, and interpretation also is easy. And point of care, you can do it at the spot. The other methods are the molecular methods, where you have the DNA probes and the PCR which you can do, and the culture also is done based on the Traeger and Jensen method, which is maintained in the human serum, and it is the media which is used is the RPMI, that is Roosevelt Park Memorial Institute 1640. That is the number of times it is passaged, that is why 1640. Coming to the treatment of the infections, most often chloroquine is the drug of choice, 600 milligrams stat plus 300 6-tardi you have to give, plus 300 milligrams on day 2 and 3. If it is resistant, especially the Falciparum, then artesunate 200 milligrams BD dose for 3 days can be given. The other drugs which could be used is the Primaquine, which is given 15 milligrams OD for 15 days in case of Vivax, 45 milligrams a single dose Primaquine can be given for Falciparum malariae. Sulfadoxine, especially if it is resistant, then you have to give sulfadoxine can be given, or pyrimethamine can be given for Falciparum malariae. The control, the prevention of these infections, public care has to be taken, wherein you are going to use residual sprays with insecticides, use of chemical larvicides like your abate in potable water, spraying during the daytime, and malathion fogging during the outbreaks. Personal care, use of mosquito nets, mosquito repellents, creams, liquids, etc. Then screen the houses with wire meshes. The windows can be put with mesh so that the mosquitoes do not enter. Use of mosquito nets, bed mosquito nets, and wearing of clothes which cover maximum exposed area, full sleeves, etc. And you also have what we call as biological control, wherein we are using larvivorous fish in ornamental tanks or fountains, etc. You can put this fish into these so that they will eat up the larvae.